Okay, morning everybody. I'm Jackie Lawton and I'm Head of Corporate Strategy and Customer Service in the Council. And part of my responsibility is to look after Vicky and her team who do all of our work with participation with young people. And I have to say, it's got to be my favourite part of my job, because involving young people is always something that I think is such a fantastic thing to do. I think you bring energy to anything we're talking about, and also you're really good at asking really good questions. So I'm hoping this panel are really well prepared. So welcome to Podrick, welcome to North Tyneside Council. This, as you know, is Local Democracy Week. And it's the 6th year that we've been running activities with young people during that week. and it's always a really, really good week to get involved. We've had already this week, we've had the annual debate with young people. We did it a bit differently this year when we made it kind of an inter-school competition, and John Spence won, which was great. So next year we're looking forward to more schools taking part, so pass the word on to your friends elsewhere. Yesterday we had 15 primary schools, our younger young people, and they were in learning all about democracy and having a voice in the community. And then today, obviously, we've got the annual Young Persons Question Time. So, as I said, young people are brilliant at asking really sharp questions. And this year we were really impressed with the quality of the questions sent in. We've done all that we can to make sure that we've covered all of the issues that were raised. And this is one of them where we're going to encourage you. I'm not going to say switch off your phones, I'm going to say use your phones, because we want you to tweet any comments, and the hashtag NTYPQT is displayed on the room. And the final question for the panel will be selected from those that are coming in on Twitter. So it's your chance to be really creative and perhaps pick up on something that the panel talk about. Can I say a massive thank you to the panel for taking part this year, and we're really looking forward to seeing how you cope with all of these questions, no pressure. So I'm not going to go on for any longer because I was told I had a strict 3 minutes. But I would like to introduce you to Adrian Pitches, and we're really grateful, Adrian, to you again for chairing the event. And Adrian's going to take it from here and he'll introduce the panel firstly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, that was great. And thank you all very much for turning up today and taking the time to come listen to us and to put us on the spot. This is the biggest panel there's ever been, so we've got a big range of opinion and expertise here. I'll run through them from your left to right, so in other words, from my right to left. So at the end there, we have Dean Chichester, who's the Chief Executive of the YMCA here in the borough. Next to him, we have Councillor Peter Early, who's the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. So he's your councillor. He's the one you need to send all your queries to. Next to him, we have Councillor Carl Johnson. And he's got a very important job because he's the Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport. And we're all very, very concerned about the environmental presence. So again, he's the man you need to get in touch with if you've got issues. Next to me here is Lauren Williams, who's set up a photography business called For You Photography and works with young people to teach them digital photography skills, which is very good if you want to buff up your Instagram account. On my left here is Councillor Lewis Bartoli. He's the Councillor for Time Out, Conservative Councillor for Time Out, Ward Councillor. To his left, to your right, is Rob Bosman, who works for Northumbria Police in harm reduction. And then at the far end, Director of Public Health in Tyneside, is Wendy Byrne. So that's all of us, and now we're going to turn our attention to you. And the first question comes from Adriatic, from Long Benton High School, and there should be a microphone coming towards you. Oh, okay. You're going to have to project. Just project, Adriatic, just project.
Why are schools still giving students food and drink plastic containers, and what else can we do to encourage young people to do more?
Good question. Why are schools, specifically North Tyneside schools, presumably still giving students food and drink in plastic containers? What else can we do to encourage young people to do more, I guess, for the environment? So, who better to answer this first than Councillor Johnson, who is the Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport?
Thank you. I think that's a fantastic question. I really appreciate you asking this. Single-use plastics are an absolutely issue that needs tackled. This has been rightly brought into the public consciousness when David Attenborough released Blue Planet a couple of years back, where we all seen the horrifying images of marine life with plastics as deep as the Mariana Trench with marine life inside of them. As an authority, that's why we have a single-use plastics plan, and we have both short, medium and long-term goals in order to try and address the issue. One of our long-term issues is how we reduce plastic waste in schools. We've already made a start replacing the recycled items of cutlery and containers with either recycled plastic or paper. Long term, we hope to take plastic bottles and cutlery out of school altogether, but this relies on contract exchanging with our catering service. But quite clearly, there's still some issue here. And that's why we're committed to work with the young mayor and the young cabinet member to try and combat these issues. The biggest barrier we faced was the head teacher group in schools. That's why today I'm going to ask you to go back to your schools and do something for me. A head teacher group would not meet with the empowerment member and myself to discuss these issues in school. So I want every single student here that cares about environment plastics to go back to their school, talk to their teachers, and ask their head teacher to come and meet with me and the empowerment member to discuss this issue further. One of the issues the empowerment member raised was recycling in schools, and saying that some schools weren't recycling nowhere near the level that they could. We tried to get a meeting with head teachers to discuss this, but unfortunately head teachers haven't been able to. So that's why I'm asking you, this is one thing you can absolutely do to try and support this. But other things that we can all do, we can follow the reduce, reuse, recycle principle in that order, which is key. That's the hierarchy. Reduce the amount of items we buy in either single-use plastic. Get a reusable water bottle and reuse it instead of buying single-use water bottles. And finally, with recycling rates at an all-time high in the world, if we can recycle, make sure we do. There's also other things schools can do. I know a lot of schools have environment groups, this might be a key thing you can look into. TerraCycle is a free program that recycles the hard to recycle items that North Tyneside Council does not recycle. This is a completely free program, and any school can become a TerraCycling site. This includes like plastic, things like plastic film, crisp packets, other stuff that just can't be recycled by us. You can apply to that program at one of these recycle bases in your schools. I would encourage every single environment group to go out there, apply for this, and this recycles the things that we can't recycle ourselves in schools. If we can do that, absolutely go out there and do that. But we are trying, we do have a long-term plan, and we will get there eventually. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Lauren, what's your take on this?
So for me, coming from a business point of view, I think that it's something that I'm really passionate about, is reducing the use of plastics. I think that using local businesses to build the education of what it is and how we can do more within our local community. There are some amazing organisations and businesses within North Tyneside, such as Kiana Living and By the Kilo, things like that, that you can go out, you can learn about what they're offering and take that home as well as in schools. So getting your mum and dad to learn more about it, and it's not actually that expensive either. So I think that even just taking a visit to these kind of places and searching them on Facebook, just get yourself to know a little bit more, and then try and take that home and back to your schools. Again, I'm a follower on from to take that back to your teachers as well and trying to make a difference, because you've got the power here. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Wendy, what do you think?
Thank you. Yeah, great question. One of the things I wanted to flag was part of the problem with the whole issue of plastic packaging for food and drink is that it is really, really good at doing the job that it's meant to do, and I think sometimes we forget that, because actually what it does is it protects and preserves fresh goods, it stops us having too much food waste, it minimises the risk of contamination, so it stops you getting poorly, and of course it increases the range of products that we can have. And actually trying to find something that does the job better is the really tricky thing that we're up against. However, having said that, I know that our school meal service is working really hard, and I was speaking to the manager of the school meal service, and she was telling me that actually they've done loads across the borough to address the 4 big plastic polluters, and the top 4 are cups, lids, straws, bottles and bags, but they're also tackling cutlery and crockery. So the team the team across our school meal service in all our schools don't use any plastic straws, they don't use any cups or cutlery, they're using wooden cutlery, for example, and also they're really keen to ensure that our food is sourced locally, so that we're not adding to food miles, which I think is really important. But I think, here's the thing, I think that young people can do lots of things. And here are my top 5 tips for you guys sitting in the audience to take back and give the message to your friends. So the first thing is, wherever you go, refuse a plastic straw in your drink. Buy a stainless steel one or a bamboo one instead, or simply just do without it. Secondly, use reusable containers for your sandwiches if you bring a packed lunch. Don't put cling film on them or foil. Thirdly, carry a refillable water bottle, or if you like a bit of a takeaway coffee, then a refillable coffee cup. Four, when you're at the supermarket with your mum and dad, try and persuade them to buy fruit and vegetable that's not wrapped in cling film. So things like only buy your bananas that are wrapped in their own skin, don't buy cucumbers that are suffocated in a plastic film. And then lastly, I would say get involved, a bit like Carl was saying, get involved. Have a look at what Kids Against Plastic are doing. It's a UK charity, it's a great website. And maybe talk to your schools, talk to your teachers in school about becoming a plastic clever school. Thanks.
Some great tips there from Wendy and Lauren as well. Oh, thank you for that. What do you think, Adriatic? What do you think of the answers, and what are you doing to reduce your plastic use?
Use that plastic straws.
Good man. It's a very good point that Wendy makes, of course. Plastic was invented to actually sort of protect and preserve. It does have good uses, but plastic waste is obviously a big issue that we're all wrestling with now. Right, we'll move on to the second question. That comes from Alfie at Muncie High School. Alfie.
What can you do in relation to bus and metro fares for young people? Prices seem to rise every September. Could we follow Greater Manchester's lead in providing free bus travel for 16 to 18-year-olds?
That was very well spoken. I don't think I need to repeat that. Councillor Johnson again.
Thank you. We obviously need to do more to encourage as many youngsters as possible to use public transport. As transport is one of the biggest contributors that every individual makes to climate change through the emissions we travel. As a council, we have limited control over the fares. Even as part of the North Tyne Combined Authority, we don't have the powers to control bus fares. We have asked this power to be involved in several government in the past, but they've refused. With the powers that Greater Manchester has got transport, came an investment fund, which Andy Byrne decided to use to fund free transport for 16 to 18-year-olds. If the government would give, as I sit in the North East Combined Authority Transport Committee as North Tyneside rep, and I can absolutely say, if the government were to give us this power and give us this fund, we would introduce free travel for 16 to 18-year-olds on buses tomorrow. Unfortunately, we don't have, but we will continue keeping to our representative government. But what we do have control over is the metro. And that's why we introduced Pop Blue, where young people between 16 and 18 can travel for a £1 single, anywhere merit system, and £2 for an all-day ticket. We of course have for under 16s, we have the £1.10 all-day ticket for bus, metro, train, and ferry within the Tyne area. What we'll do is we'll continue to try and work within our tight budgets, try and introduce new fares and get bus companies to deal with us. So I know, I feel the pain that a lot of people have done because bus companies recently have put up fares for young people. So some of the bus companies alone will charge somebody between the ages of 16 and 25, £4.50 for an all-day ticket. That's not really sustainable for somebody that's going to school or college. We do need that change. We will try and work with bus companies. We are trying to work in partnership with them to try and bring those down. We need multimodal tickets as well, so any young person should be able to buy a ticket for the bus, metro, across any different Arriva, Go North East or Stagecoach, and be able to then get another bus, metro later that day with the same ticket. If we get the powers that Greater Manchester has, we can reduce that, so we really do. So what we will do is continue to lobby central government. Boris Johnson made an announcement at Northern Powers a couple of weeks back, where he might well level up the North Tyne Combined Authority to level Greater Manchester to give us all of those powers. All we can do is absolutely urge him to do this to give us the powers to really tackle this issue, which is massive for climate change and the future of our young people.
Can I ask, the North of Tyne Mayor, who recently took control, and obviously has similar powers to Andy Byrne, not the same, does he not have the power to be able to do that?
No, so because the North of Tyne area does not cover, when we went to a devolution agreement, if we had went as the North East Combined Authority area, which includes the authorities south of the Tyne, we might well have got those powers, but because those authorities didn't want to come along with us, we did not get those powers. So we've asked for those powers. Jamie continues to lobby, Jamie Driscoll, North Tyne Mayor, continues to lobby for those powers, but we don't have them at the moment. We did a couple of years back look to bus franchising. We were the first local authorities in the country to do so. We get told by the government that if we wanted to control bus fares and control bus routes, we'd have to pay the £230 million profit that the bus companies made in the next 10 years. As a local authority, we simply couldn't afford, local authority areas, we couldn't afford to do that. Give us the powers, we'll sort out bus fares for our young people. That's what I'm listening.
Thank you for that. What's your take on this then, Councillor Walter?
So I think Councillor Johnson there has given us a great answer about why this policy isn't in place in this area and the powers that we as a council have, and that he's trying to push that forward, hopefully to get that something we can get the power to do, or the Cabinet can get the power to do. And then the question would be for us as councillors is, would we vote on that policy? I thought I would perhaps answer this question slightly differently by looking at how I would look at this question if it was put to me as council, as a council member. So if I just have a show of hands initially, who would support free travel for 16 to 18-year-olds? Who thinks that would, on the face of it, be a good policy? So I think a pretty clear majority, and I agree. I think as a headline policy, that sounds great. But it's my job to vote on this, perhaps if it should ever come to council. And the 4 points, the 4 areas that I would be looking for, I think, is first of all, is it right? Is the policy right? Is it correct? Is it right that the council, with our money as taxpayers, pays for travel of children? We're not asking you to pay, we're asking your parents to pay. So at what point does the council's responsibility take over from the state's responsibility? So we all expect free childcare, free healthcare and free education, but should we also get free travel to school? And then should we get free uniforms and free pens and pencils and free school trips? There has to be a line at which parents have to have responsibility for their children and a point at which the state has responsibility. So that's the first question I would ask, is where is that line drawn? The next question I was asked is this policy fair? Because the policy would be based on giving all 16 to 18-year-olds this free travel, regardless of the level of income of their parents. So we could have very wealthy parents who don't need that extra help getting this, perhaps from the money from families who can less afford it. So is it going to be a fair policy? The third question I asked about this policy when I was thinking about it, is it consistent? We have been trying for years to get our young people to walk to school, to cycle to school. The council spent millions on cycle paths around the school. I know when I go past Mugseen High, there's a lot of people walking to school, and we ask ourselves, would those people then move onto the public transport and perhaps walk less? So would it work against policy law in one place? And then finally, I would ask, is it good value? So I looked up Mayor Burnham's policy. It's costing £9 million over 2 years for a pilot scheme. So it's costing a lot of money, but that money has to come from somewhere. And the first area it's coming from is, whereas pensioners used to get free travel in Greater Manchester, they're now being asked to pay a contribution. So the money has moved from the old young people to the old people, if you like, or the support. So people are having to pay for it. The other area that this is being paid for is sponsorship, and that sponsorship is coming from JB Sports, and they're putting a lot of money into this to support the council. It's great. We've got a private sector representative on the council, on the panel today, and it would be great if she makes her first million, if she would come back and offer the council some support in some great initiatives. But part of that is JD Sports are offering incentives to those young people who have these cards. So is there a concern there that perhaps the council are selling the data of our young people in order to get these passes? So it might seem on the face of it like an easy vote win, and we all put our hands up and we love the headline behind it. It sounds like a great policy, 16 to 18-year-olds all travel for there. But I think it's important for us as councillors, and perhaps when you look at these policies, whether it be about environmental issues or some of the issues we're going to talk about, really drill down into the detail? Because it may be, the headline sounds great, but perhaps the policy behind it isn't always as sound.
Very thought-provoking there, thank you very much. Wendy Burke, obviously you're Director of Public Health. Should young people basically be told, just walk to school, don't take the bus?
Thank you. Yeah, I know that public transport, and particularly the use of buses, has been at the top of young people's concerns, not only locally, but right across this country. And I think particularly in relation to cost, access and safety. And I know way back in 2010, 2011, the UK Youth Parliament had it as the top priority to make public transport cheaper, better and accessible for all. And I do think that public transport should be affordable for all. And I'm going to be a bit controversial here and probably going to give Carl a bit of a heart attack. I think there's a really strong case here for making local public transport free for the under 30s. And I think the basis of that is around encouraging younger adults to maintain that habit of using public transport in their youth through into early adulthood, rather than buying a car and becoming car dependent. And I think that's really important. It's really important because as a nation, we do not take enough physical activity. We are just far too sedentary, and it's a real risk to our health and well-being. So using the car and dependence on the car is a real problem for us because it leads to us being overweight, but also there's a whole host of other impacts. So it leads to road accidents, to air pollution, to noise, and actually it also socially, it isolates us as individuals. So we know the evidence is really strong that using public transport together with walking and cycling increases physical activity. It helps us reduce the risk of obesity and other health problems that are related to not having enough physical activity in our daily lives. So that is my position, and I just want to highlight for you. Back in May this year, there was a great headline in the Daily Telegraph, and it was titled, "Ditch the car and lose half a stone. Research shows that public transport is linked to a lower body mass index," and it argued that people should be encouraged to ditch their car and take the bus or walk or cycle after work. And it showed that on average that men can lose on average half a stone. So I think the case is really clear. I think there's a really clear economic case to support your argument.
Thank you very much. There you are. You need to go home tonight and tell your parents to ditch the car. That's it. No more car driving. Worth reminding you that obviously this is not only being sort of live streamed, but we're obviously got the Twitter hashtag there, EQT, and no doubt you're all tweeting away and retweeting, which is great, and they're appearing on the screen there. Okay, our third question comes from Laura, Marlborough High School.
At a time when young adults are scrutinised for hanging around with management of time and technology, why aren't more groups being funded to support young people from all backgrounds to help them explore the world and have fun?
Thank you, Laura. So Laura's question was, at a time when young adults are basically being castigated for hanging around, spending too much time on your phones, why aren't there more youth groups being funded in the borough to support young people from all backgrounds to explore, learn and have fun? It's a very good question. Dean, you're at the YMCA, you are obviously dealing with young people all the time.
Thanks, Laura. Great question. Coming from a young person's organisation, I was really pleased to see this on there, so thank you very much. I'm going to take it in two parts because I don't want to get lost on just the youth service because there's a bit about technology as well in there, isn't there? So I'll try and cover a bit of both if I can. Although I'm a bit of a technophobe, I am trying to do a bit of twittering or tweeting, whatever you call it. So I apologise if it's a load of rubbish I'm putting up. I think it's interesting that youth clubs and youth services, youth groups have seen the demise of funding cuts. I think since 2011, from what we understand as an organisation, I'm not political, so I'm not getting political here because I am an apolitical organisation. It's interesting though that you can't miss the fact that in the North East alone, 96% of funding has been cut on youth services. Okay. Now, you can't have 96% of funding cut without it having an effect on young people and the services that they receive. And I know in North Tyneside, hard decisions have had to be made, and that's actually not to be saying that some youth services still aren't going, because some of them are just done in a different way now. You know, it's not easy just to say that youth clubs and youth groups are the way to deliver to young people, because as we go on and as time goes on, young people have different needs in different ways. So I think there is a mix of how stuff is delivered to young people. So although there has been a huge cut, it's hard to say that that's been the whole effect in North Tyneside, if that makes sense. However, you can't miss the fact that that funding and the missing youth groups and youth clubs that are there now, which used to lend into things like safe places to go, safe spaces to be. We have huge agendas at the moment around mental health and loneliness. There's issues around antisocial behaviour. Actually, when I was younger, and that was a long time ago, believe me, it was interesting that because if I actually wasn't speaking to my mates on the street corner, I would be antisocial. Sometimes now, if I'm speaking to my mates on the street corner, you class as antisocial as well. So there's a real difficulty in perception. So we need safe spaces for people to go and be. But you can't get away from the fact that without these places, there has been a knock-on effect to things like mental health, loneliness, violence in some stages. And so I think there is an onus for us to look and say, how do we introduce this? Now, coming from an organisation that's a youth-focused organisation, we've tried to maintain the services that we provide. It's been really difficult because there's been no money around to do it. But you really have to stick by what you believe, don't you? You know, you've got to say, well, if we're a young person organisation, we'll maintain to deliver what we're doing. And there's a really eclectic mix in North Tyneside, real good partnerships that are going on in the voluntary sector and the statutory sector. You've got stuff that is targeted, so in things that are specific, might be around sexual health or something else. And then you've got other offers that are what we would call universal, and they could be drop-in youth clubs, that could be detached work, and so forth. So there is stuff going on. And I dare say probably one of the challenges is communication. How do we let young people know that these things are happening, where they're happening, how are they accessible? I know it's in my organisation, you know, we're still running youth clubs, we're still running team relax sessions, we're running after school activities, we're running physical activity, health and wellbeing fitness sessions, we're running young person's membership to the gym. We run creative arts activities, we've got a music studio, so we've got an eclectic mix and we still continue and strive to deliver that. And I think it is also good to see the government, and as I said, I'm not political, but I think it's good to see that the government have recently announced, under pressure from many organisations and young people, they're going to put funding into new youth services. I've got to say, it's got to go a long way to play catch up to what actually has been cut in the past. You know, there's something like 500 million going in, but we're talking about billions that's been cut. But it's a good start. I don't want to look on the negative, I want to look on the positive, and we're hoping that we could leave some of that money to North Tyneside. We would like to see more youth groups and youth clubs around the place. And actually, I put up there, there's a tweet that I put up there. The YMCA have done some work nationally, and we're calling on all young people to sign a petition that we've got, and I would encourage all of you in the room to sign up for that petition, asking for further investment into youth services. So if you can get onto that tweet and get onto our Facebook page, if the link is there, it will help that. So what am I saying in a nutshell without babbling on? I think it's really important. I think it's a great question. I think there are still activities, many activities that are going on out there. I think we've got to be able to communicate those better, but I think this further investment is needed. But there is many organisations that are delivering. But just quickly on the technology side, we can't get away from the fact that technology is here to stay, that social media is here to stay, that gaming is here to stay. It's a huge industry. But we've got to provide alternatives to that. And there's something that I'd like to see, and we're looking at running a programme at the moment, which is called Connect, Disconnect, Reconnect. And really what we're thinking about is, young people, it's a good way for people to connect via technology. So there's no point saying stop doing it. But actually, how do we help young people to partially or fully disconnect from that to reconnect with other young people in other settings? So I think technology is a big challenge to us, but I think we could combine the two in terms of where we're providing positive activities to young people.
Thanks, Dean, and thank you to whoever has tweeted the YMCA GIF. It's now running on the screen.
That's very appropriate.
Rob,
Just run down and do that, Adrian.
I think that was good, Dean. Rob, thanks.
Laura, thanks for your question. I think there's a couple of things in your question which we deal with as the police, and misconception, I think, which we deal with on a daily basis. So kids hanging around in the street is potentially seen as a bad thing sometimes when people call in, when actually when we get there and investigate it, it's not the case. It's just people talking with their friends, and it's sometimes our job to maybe manage that expectation with the public, the ones that especially ringing in saying someone's kicking the ball up with balls and things. So I think that's part of the misconception, the question which we deal with on a daily basis. As per the kids spending too much time with technology, my 8-year-old definitely does. To his iPad and his PlayStation, maybe being a bad parent, I suppose you need to question that, but I think we definitely need to monitor that and measure it, and even for ourselves, I think everyone's got a responsibility to manage the time, especially when you get your iPhone, you get how long you spend on per week on average. It's quite frightening when you look at it. I definitely think we can all do something individually. So, totally agree. I totally agree that we need to put things in place so young people have opportunities. And it's maybe how we advertise that as well, because from our perspective, I think working with the local authority, there are opportunities out there, especially traditional routes, like the likes of rugby and football and swimming and clubs and scouts and all those sort of things. I think there's some things we offer, so the mini police and the cadets, if anyone wants to volunteer, maybe now? No? No, okay. But I think the engagement thing is an issue for us, and that's why we do a lot of work with the local authority. We work with the youth cabinet. We just had the youth conference. I don't know if anyone was here that went to that, but that's our way of trying to better engage with young people to see how we can connect, because I think some of the traditional methods that we use don't necessarily work, but there's an opportunity for us moving forward to say, well, how can we better engage, especially with the likes of knife crime and all the sort of other things that are on the radar that are potentially worrying the likes of yourselves, is how do we connect and see how we can engage and maybe reassure you, or you can feel like you can actually talk to the police. So I'm not sure how many people in the room would feel comfortable talking to police officers, and that's something for us to look at and try and break down those barriers. We're trying to do that all the time, but it's, we're catching up with you because you are, like say, my 8-year-old's probably more technically savvy than I am. So it's a real hard thing for us to do, especially from an Asian organisation like this. In terms of funding, the violence reduction unit, which is from the PCC, have got a lot of money now to create potentially diversion, linking with the Newcastle Knight Foundation and the Sunderland Foundation, and so there's definitely things on the horizon, and you know that's probably part of what was mentioned before about austerity. We haven't had the funds to do that previously, but it seems like we're getting more money to spend on youth provision, youth activity, to support that youth diversion, definitely. And lastly, I think we've probably all got a bit of a part to play in relation to that technology issue that I faced before, especially me, you'll be able to with yourselves as well. You just need to maybe manage what you do online and get involved, get out. Different generation, we were talking about it before actually. I was out playing football every day. I didn't have a mobile phone, didn't have any internet devices. My mum would shout in the back garden as loud as you could to get me to come back in. That's changed, and it's not gonna, can't revert back to that, but we need to be conscious that you need to get involved in certain things as well. That's very important.
Thank you, Rob. Councillor Early.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for your question. I think you're right to point out that the level of scrutiny and criticism that young people face today, which in many cases I think is unjustified. The vast majority of young adults I meet have a wide range of interests, and they're really engaged with the world around them. They are very adept at using technology as a tool, and I think panel members have already mentioned how they've got involved campaigning on social issues like climate change and using technology to help them do that. So they're very adept, and the use of technology in a lot of good ways. So I don't think that people using technology should necessarily be seen as a bad thing, provided their use isn't excessive or for the wrong reasons. However, that said, I agree that people need to be able to access a range of opportunities to allow them to engage in cultural activities like music and drama, sports and health and well-being activities, and social activities such as volunteering. And the council does support a number of activities for young people, and this event today is just one example. And I was at the young people's debate on Tuesday, which was another really great event for young people. So it was already been mentioned, we have a very active youth council and a young mayor who are challenging on very important issues like climate change. Some of the practical things we do as a council, we offer these extra 0-16 cards to young people, and that allows them both to council leisure facilities and libraries, just one card. Over the summer months, we had activities in our parks like fun days in Thornton Park. We offer things like free bike cycle training to children and young people. So as Dean said, it's not just about what the council offers to young people. There are a huge range of activities offered to young people in North Tyneside through other groups, through schools, voluntary groups, churches and charities. Whether it's something like the Defender Awards Scheme or the National Citizenship Service, sporting clubs, drama groups, as Dean has already said, a range of activities that organisations like the YMCA provide. So whilst it's true that the council can't always fund services to the extent that it would like, as a cabinet member, I have a budget for providing children's services across North Tyneside. Unfortunately, we do have to prioritise. We have a lot of legal responsibilities where we have to provide certain services. We have looked after children, safeguarding, and a whole range of obligations that we have to meet. And that's quite right and fitting that we do that. So, although I would love to spend more of my budget on providing youth services, at the moment we have to cut our cost accordingly and think about some of the other priorities as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, we'll crack on. This is a very good question from Shane at Broadbridge School next.
What is available for young people who are experiencing mental health problems?
Thank you, Shane. So the question was, what is available for young people who are experiencing mental health problems? Wendy.
Thank you. Great question. So just want to give you some facts and figures here. So the latest national survey of children and young people's mental health identified that across England, 1 in 8, so 1 in 8 of 5 to 19-year-olds had at least one mental health disorder. If we were to apply that to our population in North Tyneside of 5 to 19-year-olds, there are about 30,000 5 to 19-year-olds across the borough, then that would mean that there are about 4,000 young people in North Tyneside who have got some kind of diagnosed mental health problem. Now, that is a lot of young people, and we should be concerned about that. But if you flip it the other way, that means there's also 26,000 young people who don't, who are living with relatively good mental health. And I think we should always remember that, because I think it's really easy to err on kind of the negativity around that. That said, I am pleased to tell you that we are doing lots and lots across North Tyneside in relation to children and young people's mental health, and that there is a lot of support available for children and young people. And I think it's really important though to acknowledge that a lot of the work that goes on might be a bit invisible to you all, and I think that that's really important to recognise, because actually there's quite a lot of focus on trying to really enhance the things that protect good mental health and well-being. And the reason that that's really important is that we need to make sure that you as young people can cope with the demands and the stresses and strains of everyday life. So all the things that young people face, and that gives you the ability to bounce back from what life throws at you. And actually, when you think about some of the things that are there to support young people, they are quite invisible, and we sometimes don't think about them. So if you just think about all of the support that you get from your family, the support that you get from your friends, what happens in your communities, so you know the clubs and the groups that you might be part of, so clubs and scouts and brownies, maybe sports clubs, the support that you might get in school from your teachers, your teaching staff, all of that's really, really important in terms of supporting good mental health and well-being, because it's actually those kinds of supports that make us resilient. And I think we shouldn't forget about that whole raft of things that happens, and if I've forgotten anything, anyone, I apologise. So one of the things that we did a little while ago is we did a fantastic piece of work in North Tyneside with our young people, and it was called the NH2K project, and we trained about 25 young people across the borough to be citizens researchers, and then they went out and they spoke to over 500 young people across the borough, and they asked those young people what was important in terms of their mental health and well-being. And they found that the things that are really important are family, friendships, relationships, social media, schools, and some of the pressure that they feel under in school. And those young people have continued to work on that piece of work, and they've produced an action plan. And actually, one of the things recently that group of people have produced is this fantastic little resource, which is called Help Yourself. And then we've got Alana. Alana, can you just wave? Alana's in the audience, and Alana created the artwork for this. And this is a leaflet that's just about to be circulated across schools to young people. And it's got some fantastic information about where young people can go to for help and advice. And this has been produced by young people, and it is fabulous. So I think also in addition to that, and some of the information is in this leaflet, we've got Couth.com, so we've got our online digital platform that's for young people across the borough. We've just extended that. That's now available to young people up to the age of 25. Provides information, support, online counselling for any young person who might need it across the borough, which is great. And we're also doing a raft of other work with other organisations who also provide really good support. So Bernardo's, Elise and Whitley Bay, Phoenix Detached Youth Project. Obviously, Dean at the YMCA does a lot of work around supporting young people. So there's a huge amount going on. I guess from my perspective, my message to you and to take back to schools is to just think about what you can do. So, and I'd like every young person to look after their mental health just like they look after their physical health. And again, some quick top tips from me around how we can do that, and please spread the message. And I think those top tips are, firstly, talk about how you feel. And we know that that's a problem, particularly for boys. So, you know, spread that message. Talk about how you feel. Keep active. And I know you must think I'm like the physical activity police. I'm not. Honestly, there's some really good reasons why you need to keep physically active. When you're physically active, it produces things called endorphins. And those endorphins make you feel great. So get physically active. Eat well, sleep well, keep in touch, ask for help, and above all else, just care for each other.
Some great stuff there. And that leaflet that you were mentioning, is that available for young people today? I thought so.
Yeah, we've got some copies for you.
Great, so grab one of those on the way out if you can. Colin.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. I think it's really, really great. For me, I'm still classed as a young person, just, so I'm still in that bracket, believe it or not. And so mental health for me is something that's been really close. At the beginning of this year, I've not been able to sit up here and speak to anybody. It's something that I've struggled through growing up as a teenager right through into my adult life. And the reason that I set up my photography company is because of my mental health. So my background is in support and criminal justice system. started to leave that job because of that, because my mental health deteriorating. And I think something that's really important is the reason that I can sit up here and speak and do everything that I'm achieving now is because I have got a really good supportive network around me, and I speak to my friends and my family, and I think that's something that you should all consider. Even if you're not feeling 100% one day, then just talk to your mum, talk to your dad, talk to teachers, anybody who's there. But also on the other side of that, speaking to people is great, but also listening. So if somebody's coming to you and wanting to talk, just take 5 minutes out of your day just to listen to what they have to say, because it might make a huge difference to them. I also work with young people in a group called I Will, which I tweeted about earlier, which is an organisation that is working for social action. So we have to work on doing creative challenges. So we do photography, videoing, editing, all sorts of things, and it's to make a difference within our community, especially in North Tyneside. So we'll work with different charities that can't afford professional service, but to make a difference around mental health, around poverty, around lots of different issues that we face. So it's something to think about, that yes, sitting at home and being on your computer might be great, but actually if you take out some of your time, you get an experience that can help you with future job prospects, but also it's getting you out of the house and it might make you feel better. So just keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Really useful. Dean, next, could you keep it concise?
I'll be very concise. I'm a young person, by the way. Shane, I thought you read that brilliantly, by the way. I thought very confident. So well done. It's really good to follow Wendy, because the director probably not going to echo most of the stuff that she said, but I will keep it concise. Just to say that, Jackson, if you're out there, hopefully that leaflet will help address some of the things in terms of fixing the problems, not just having the stats as well. So it does lend itself, so I would encourage you to pick up a leaflet for that. A good tweet and some good gifts going on, thank you for those. I think just to say what Wendy has said and echo these things, there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but it's not just a lot of talk and rhetoric, it's a lot of talk about what can we do, what action can we put into place to better young people's and actually the general public's health and emotional well-being. We're looking at pooling resources. She mentioned coop.com. The MH2K results and the work that's been done on that is being taken on board by many organisations, not just by the local authorities. So there's great partnership work that is going on. So rest assured, this is high on the agenda. It's really important that it just doesn't become a talking shop, that young people do matter to us. I'd like to see more signature programs out there around peer support. I talked earlier on about the disconnect and the technology stuff. I also think things like body image that we can sometimes see as a separate thing to mental health is actually an issue for the wider mental health issue. But I will finish with this, and I just want to, and I don't want to get controversial. I think at the moment it's quite easy for us to put an awful lot of stuff down to mental health. And I think we've really got to get to understand the issues around mental health. I think, for me, I'd like to see a bit more work done around resilience and dealing with stress. Because, you know, stress is an everyday thing, and there's good stress and bad stress. We've just got to be able to have some understanding that stress is there, and how do we help young people to understand that the stress that you face, and believe me, I think you face more challenges than I ever faced as a young person. That how do you deal with that stress in the right way, and how do we create that resilience? Thanks.
Thank you, Dean. There's some great contributions there, some very good answers. Thank you for that question, Shane. Very topical. As is the next question, very topical question from Charles from John Spence High School.
What are your organisations doing to help combat the climate emergency?
Well done, Charles. Straight to the heart of it. What are your organisations doing to help combat the climate emergency? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Great question. This is something that's taken up a lot of my role in the council at the moment. Climate change is the biggest threat that your generation and every future generation will face while on this planet. but it's absolutely essential that we get the grip through it sooner rather than later. North Tyneside Council has declared a climate emergency and are reviewing many things to ensure we tackle climate change. One big thing to do is pushing for divestment and carbon. So as a Tyneside pension fund, so every staff member that works at the council is in a pension fund, and that pension fund previously has invested in the fossil fuel industry. That's been very good and helped return some money to the staff pension fund, but it's also helping fuel the global fossil fuel industry, which is one of the biggest carbon emitters in the entire world. So as a pension fund, we're pushing to divest in that and stop investing in that industry. We're looking at forming an energy supply company as a North East Council area. Energy efficiency in the North East is at the lowest in the country outside of the southwest of the country. That is absolutely key for how we insulate our homes and heat our homes correctly to stop using unnecessary energy that we do. As part of the combined authority, we're part of a low carbon working group to try and reduce carbon across the North Tyne area. We've pledged to reduce plastics and recycle more. We've already heard the question on plastics earlier, but that's absolutely key that we don't produce unnecessary plastic. INEOS, who are the biggest plastic producers in this country, they get their energy that they produce the plastic from. That's on a pipeline almost from North America, shale gas from fracking, which is already bad for the environment to begin with, but then the shale gas is then shipped over on heavy pollutant ships to in Scotland, the third, and then turned into plastic, which is a high energy intensive process which involves cracking the gas to turn into plastic. People rightly saying earlier that plastic is a fantastic resource and when used right is great, but when used wrong and ends up in the wrong areas, it's not so great. Recycling plastic is the key thing that we're doing. Recycling rates in North Tyneside are high, but we hope we can go even further and reduce the number that go to landfill. Since we declared a climate emergency, every single strategic decision we take as a council has to consider what impact that has on climate change. So no matter what decision we're going to make in the next 10 years of the council, we will consider how that impacts climate change. That will change the shape of the authority going forward forever, because there's things that we just wouldn't be able to do now because they have too much of an impact on the environment, which is great. We have building a lot of homes in North Tyneside over the next couple of years. The government said we have to build this many homes. People want to live in North Tyneside, which is great, but we're absolutely committed to making these homes as low carbon as possible in our design guide and the local plan, ensure that these homes will be as energy efficient as possible and as low carbon as they possibly can be. But we are just a tiny part of this. As an authority, so North Tyneside Council produced 18,166 tonnes of carbon dioxide last year. The Borough of North Tyneside as a whole produced 892,176 tonnes of carbon dioxide over last year. So even at the council, we reduced our carbon outtake to net zero by 2030 or 2050. The borough as a whole needs to come along with us and we need to get action in that. What have we seen since 2010 though? We've seen great action across the borough. So since 2010, the authority's carbon budget reduced by carbon emissions is reduced by 45%. The boroughs has reduced by 42% per head of population. So we are making good progress already, but we do have a lot further to go. As an authority, we can't tackle this issue alone, and the government does have to help. I know this is a repeat theme of some of my answers so far. But as a local authority, we can't tackle climate change alone. We need help from the government, and the government, UK Parliament has declared a climate emergency, so hopefully that will be forthcoming. But our young people are key to this future, and that's why we've committed to working with the participation team and the young cabinet member. We've met with them a lot, we keep updated, we constantly go back and forth, they bring ideas and we try to implement them. And young people are at the heart of this and will continue to be at the heart of how this borough gets out of the climate emergency, gets our planet back on track, and ensure we don't increase the temperature of the planet by 1.5 degrees before 2050, which is the cliff edge for climate change.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Dean, what's the YMCA doing about the climate emergency?
Okay, it's great that actually there's been a climate emergency created in the country, isn't it? And North Tyneside also declared climate emergency. So that's a really good starting point. But as an organisation, we're a local organisation, but we're also a national global organisation. So we have a voice at the table sort of globally. But locally, I think we've been fully committed, particularly to raising the awareness of climate emergency over the past few years. I think there is something about each one of us, whether that's adults, young people, or whatever, doing their own little bit themselves. It's okay saying, well, that doesn't make a difference, but it is about doing that. So there's a lot of encouragement that goes on in my organisation to staff members around doing their own stuff. And that could be things like we encourage them not coming to work in the car, when you mentioned earlier on in terms of our fitness levels and those type of things. It could be about taking transport, but even better about bikes as well. But then again, we probably have to look about the security of bikes around the place. That's another issue. But we're committed to advancing the global conservation and taking responsibility. I think we've got to take responsibility ourselves. And particularly as an organisation, we've raised our awareness around recycling and what that means, about reducing the carbon on utilities. And that could be things which we're looking at around solar panels, battery storage that we're looking at. Unfortunately, the planning committee here won't let me put a big windmill on top of my building, but there we go, that's not a problem. There are other ways of getting around that. But things in terms of reducing energy on the mainstream and looking at alternative ways is a big thing for us. But even going into things like in our cafe, it's very popular with young people around the coffees that we serve, around the milkshakes, is that we're trying to reduce plastic, we're trying to reduce areas in terms of we want to encourage recycling. So for example, if you brought your own cup in, you get a reduction on the price. So it's things like that that I think do make a headway on doing this sort of things. We also have adopted the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's 4 of those that we've adopted. And they talk about responsible consumption and production as one, climate action, life below water, and life on land. And we're taking those as headings in terms of how can we create some programs and awareness around that, both for our staff, but also for our users and beneficiaries. And we're also seeking to partner to strengthen and scale into the youth environment and climate change. We've got an aspiration globally as an organisation, and that matters locally for North Tyneside to be part of that, that by 2022, we want at least 3 million young people to have gone through educational outreach, community partnerships and grassroots campaigns around climate change and the climate emergency. So we're committed to not just doing the everyday stuff, but also the educational stuff. And the voice of young people in this is really important.
Thank you, Dean. Rob, what is Northumbria Police doing? This is a difficult role for the police, but what's the police doing?
Yeah, it's not quite my day job, but I think we've all got personal responsibility, and especially within our organisation, probably 80% of what we spend in terms of money is on people. So I think if we can influence our workforce in relation to their own responsibility, that's probably where the trick is for us. We obviously do have recycling in police stations. We do look at smart printers. Technology is a big thing for us as well. What we're trying to do is not get officers to come back to the station if we can. So when they go out in the cars, they stay out in the cars and they don't travel anywhere necessarily. In rural communities up in Northumberland, that's probably where our biggest footprint in terms of the use of cars. So car sharing to work. We are implementing a new operating model in November, which will actually look at that in terms of getting people to and from work rather than having everyone travelling in their own cars. Obviously car share, which is across the whole area really, but bikes as well, cycles to work scheme, which we run within Northumbria Police, I think a lot of communities and businesses have anyway. So I think really it's a personal responsibility, and for our staff it's the little things I think which make a difference. We have reduced our estate size, so we haven't got many buildings, and we're working with the local authority to maybe look at how we can share buildings as well, so we, again, reducing our sort of carbon footprint within the community. So I think the other, sorry, I think the other thing for us is we need to be conscious that we need to maintain sort of a business as usual though, because if you ring, you expect somebody to come out and we need to get there in a certain amount of time, so there's definitely that balance to play, especially for the police.
Thank you, Rob. I know you could answer the next one, so. So, the next question comes from John Campbell from St Thomas More.
Do you think that police feel safe when they're doing their duties, and how can we support them?
So this is a slightly different take, but it's a very good question from John. Do you think that the police feel safe when they're doing their duties, and how can we support them in their work? So, Rob.
What do you think? Just throw it back at you slightly there.
I feel like you feel safe, but sometimes like not when you're doing it.
Yeah, okay. Hands up people that have been in a fight or some sort of confrontation situation. Go on, be honest. Yeah, okay. That emotion, and maybe think back about how you felt at that point in time. Potentially that's what we go into and that's what we deal with on a daily basis. So the officers out on the front line deal with that emotion. But because we deal with that emotion, we know we're going to go into that situation. We have a lot of training around that, and so with training, what you get is a response to how you deal with something. It doesn't take away the potential fear, but what it does is put you into an automatic response to how to deal with that situation. So if you don't deal with it all the time, you might fight, fight or flight, so you might freeze, but with training, it brings you into an automatic response. So we have obviously, we have batons and CS, we have taser. We've just spent £650,000 on taser, so we're looking at having taser opportunities for every police officer on the front line. I think it's definitely a useful tool that you've probably seen in videos on YouTube. It definitely works, and even the presence of taser works when somebody sees it's a deterrent. So I think there's definitely a feeling when you're involved in this, and where even afterwards you feel that adrenaline, you feel the spike, but ultimately training helps to kick in. The new model that we're looking to introduce as well, hopefully, will put more frontline officers on the street at certain times. So from a personal perspective, I feel a lot safer when I'm double crewed. So if we have a response team which is continually double crewed based on increased numbers, then that's going to make police officers feel safe. I think there is some media, incidents and stories recently which highlight the dangers that the police face. And I think a really good example of what we're talking about before is the one in Manchester, which you've probably seen, whereby the public are running away from the knife-wielding person in the Arndale Centre, and 3 officers are running towards it. So we join to protect people, property, keep the Queen's peace, but ultimately our training helps us to deliver on that. Yeah, okay, I've got 16 years in the police service, and there's times where I've thought this is a really scary situation, but with the support of your colleagues, with the support of training and everything else around it, then you do feel safe and protected. In terms of the organisation, we put a lot of effort into supporting colleagues as well, in terms of the occupational health side of it, the referrals, the TRIM referrals, the trauma-based referrals, because some instances can be really traumatic. And actually, if you don't think it's affected you straight away, it might be later on. So, for example, what you were talking about before, you've had a fight, the adrenaline afterwards, it might be 2 weeks later when you feel some emotional connection to that incident, and that's the same with police officers as well. Yeah, okay, good. Well, I was going to say, the other thing I was going to say is that we're out there doing a job, but don't feel afraid to approach the police and speak to us about this as well, because I'm a dad, I've got a mum, I've got kids, I've got relatives, but I'm just like you were part of the appealing principles of policing is we are the community. And I live in a village, like you live in a house. I'm just the same as you, but just because we put that uniform on doesn't make us invincible.
That's great, Rob. Thank you ever so much. That was really good. Right, the 2 councillors I'm going to call next will be very concise, which I know is always challenging for a councillor. Then that would be great, because we're running ahead of ourselves, because we're getting very enthusiastic, which is brilliant. Councillor Early first.
Thank you. Thanks, John, for the questions. Very topical. I think most of us are probably aware from watching news and reading reports that police forces are under pressure in terms of their resourcing and on occasion have or struggling to fill all the roles that they have. Things like cyber crime are an additional area that they need to increase the resource. So I think as a society, probably in terms of supporting the police in that sense, we're all at fault for not having support in terms of giving them the resources they need. I can't really comment about whether police feel safe at work as another police officer, but I think all these statistics show that the number of assaults on police officers are rising, and so in that sense, I would guess that statistically they are less safe at work. How do we support them? As members of the public, we need to understand the pressures that they're under. We need to show them respect, and we need to interact with them, as Robert said, not be afraid to raise issues, report crime, and just a little bit more understanding about the pressures police are under and working with them and working in partnership.
That's concise, thank you very much. Councillor Barton.
So the first part of what I was going to say was just praising the police, but as I'm running out of time, I'm sorry, Rob, the bravery that you've done. That's all done. So in order to prepare for this question, I'm in a fortunate position. I have a few friends who are police officers. I rang them last night and I said that people of St Thomas More want to know, do you feel safe doing your job? And after some pause and some, why are you ringing me at this time of night? That's such a ridiculous question. I got the answer, and I think an answer that Rob gave was yes, generally we do feel safe. We've got great training, we've got great colleagues, we've got great systems in place. That there's no doubt that the officers that they do a great job and they feel generally safe. But the one comment that came through was that the resilience within the system is no longer there. And what that means, because primarily it cuts to police numbers, is they are patrolling on their own. They don't have quite the same response times, the colleagues getting there, the same number of colleagues responding. So it's much more difficult for them if things really go badly. And as well as being a councillor, I'm also a magistrate. So I've been a magistrate in North Tyneside for the past 20 years. So I've worked within the criminal justice system. I actually recognise a few faces, I think, being in front of me on the bench. Worryingly, I think they're all teachers. So if anyone's looking down at their lap at the moment, you might know the teachers have been in trouble. So I've seen those cuts and they have run very deeply through the criminal justice system. I would say now the tide is turning. We've seen some new legislation coming through. There's a new offence of an assault on an emergency worker, which has increased the maximum penalties for those that assault not just the police but other emergency workers from 6 to 12 months. We're seeing more police officers, I think 185 are on their way into Northumbria. And in the Queen's speech just a few days ago, we've seen the police protection bill being proposed, which again increases the maximum sentencing from 12 months to 24 months for people who assault police officers. But what I would say, in many ways, the way I answered my last question was, as people who are interested in politics, look into the detail, because it's all well and good saying the maximum sentence is now 24 months if you assault a police officer. The average sentence is still only 8 weeks. So it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. If we're not giving out realistic sentences, then there's not a deterrent to keep the police safe. So perhaps rather than looking at maximum sentencing, we should be looking at minimum sentencing like we do with knife crimes. So if you assault a police officer, you are guaranteed a minimum number of weeks in prison. And I think that's the kind of deterrent we need to put in place. So there's no doubt the police have, I think, have had it harder than any other group with austerity, but I think the tide is turning, and they seem to be the priority for the government again, which is great to see. But like the other council said, there's an awful lot of work left to do.
Thank you, that was a very good perspective. Well, we have a lot of topical questions. We've got another topical question coming. This is from Ruby from Valley Gardens Middle School.
What are your plans to support the community and local businesses throughout Brexit?
Well, they don't come more topical than that. What are your plans to support the community and businesses through Brexit? First of all, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Great question. And as we've been sitting here, I've just seen pop up on Twitter there that we have now a deal apparently with the EU. So very topical and evolving every second. So the answer I wrote last night, not great now. So as an authority, we work with both community business and ensure we can do everything we possibly can to support them post-Brexit. We work with regional and national partners to try and ensure as little disruption as possible for businesses and communities in North Tyneside. North Tyneside Authority, Newcastle Airport, the Port of Tyne, and all big exporting businesses, we have regular contact with all of those to try and ensure what happens post-Brexit will be no disruption as possible. The Port of Tyne, for instance, Port of Tyne is a growing port, it's one of the big, fastest growing ports in the country. But post-Brexit, should we end up in a situation which we don't know what situation we're ending up in yet, because it's still 2 weeks away and we don't know. But Port of Tyne could face unprecedented levels of ships wanting to dock containers and other products with it. We work with them to ensure that they can deal with capacity and we can deal with capacity going out there. But I suppose the big thing for this is it's 2 weeks until we are meant to leave the European Union. We don't know what terms we're leaving on, because even though, well, we do now, but we don't know what terms we're supposed to be leaving on, but members of Parliament are going to transport on this, they will vote on Saturday to see whether they want that deal. General public haven't had a chance to really digest what's going on, so I think it's very difficult to plan appropriately for a lot of organisations when they don't really know what level of disruption we're going to face. On one end, we could face very little disruption and things could be seamless. On the other end, if things go one way, disruption could be massive and be terrible for the community. So we are working with business and local community and partnering with them to try and see what we can do to reduce the impact. But we have to know what terms we're leaving on before we can properly do that.
We're still in the dark. Councillor Bartoli.
Well, once again, I think my speech has had to be half crossed out because I've just heard there's a deal. So whilst we've been sat in this room, men and women have been sat in Westminster and Brussels fleshing out a deal. And it sounds like we've got a deal on the 31st of October. We will be leaving the EU. I think that's vital for us as a country and a democracy. It's important that you know the way you vote, that vote is carried out. So hopefully we can take positives out of the future. Now, with regards to Brexit, I think there's a lot of feeling amongst young people in particular that Brexit is a negative, and we hear a lot about the effects of Brexit and all the bad things that are going to happen, but there are also a lot of potential opportunities with Brexit. And 85% of our businesses don't deal with the EU. So Lauren's business, for example, will probably be totally unaffected. We had a chat before. She's not in any kind of supply chain. So most of the businesses, the coffee shops that you go to, the businesses that we all use on a day-to-day will be unaffected. But there will undoubtedly be some issues. But in my ward, I've got Tynemouth ward, and I've got North Shields Fish Quay. And if you went back 20 or 30 years, there were hundreds of fishing boats. And when I talk to the fishermen now, they're concerned, they're worried about the future, but they're also optimistic because we have a great opportunity to bring a huge fishing fleet back into Tynemouth. And that wouldn't just be jobs for fishermen, that would be jobs for the supply chains, the supports, the hotels, the cafes, the restaurants, all around. So there's a great opportunity there which we can take advantage of. And Councillor Johnson also mentioned the Port of Tyne. And the council has done great work in preparing for Brexit, but one of the things that we're trying to push for is to make the Port of Tyne a free port. And what that would mean is, in effect, it would be different tax rate regulations for the Port of Tyne. And it would give a huge economic boost to the area, bring a lot of jobs and a lot of businesses into the area, because it would allow trade to travel in and out of the Port of Tyne more freely. So I think it's easy to focus sometimes on the negatives of Brexit, but as you grow, you're going to be the generation that's potentially most impacted. I think you can also look forward to a bright future. There are a lot of opportunities that come with Brexit as well.
Thank you both. Lauren, you are indeed our business representative. Have you been checking all your paperwork and around for Brexit?
Well, as we said, like, it is difficult for me to know much, as it is with everybody, regarding Brexit. I think when it comes to my business, as you said, it doesn't really have a huge effect. However, there is things in place. I have a lot of training through Business Factory, which is run through North Tyneside Council, which a lot of the funding does come from Europe. So I suppose that the future of training opportunities and things like that are a little bit unclear at the minute. And myself, I don't know how that's going to pan out. But I think that moving up, it's kind of just all uncertainty for right across the board. I don't think anybody really has a clear, definite answer at this time. Thank you.
All will be revealed in that as the day goes on and the weeks go on. Right, okay, good stuff. Well, very much sort of pertinent to that, what we've been talking about. I've got a question now from Lucy from Johnson High School.
Why is it so hard for young people to find jobs?
Why is it so hard for young people to find jobs? Councillor Early.
Thank you, Lucy. Great question. I think the first thing to say is that the picture for young people seeking employment or training in North Tyneside is largely a positive one. Last year in North Tyneside, only 5.4% of young people in the borough between the ages of 16 and 18 were not in some kind of education, employment or training, and that was well below the average for that for needs across England, which is always at 6%. We have a good education system. Over 88% of our schools are rated as good outstanding by Ofsted. And last summer we had the best ever A-level results and our highest attainment ever for those studying for vocational subjects in areas like BTECs. So the number of businesses in the borough continues to grow. As a council, we've helped create nearly 6,000 new jobs in the last 5 years, and the rate of unemployment in the borough has continued to fall in recent years. However, that said, I think there is still an issue with some young people struggling to find work, and I think you can see where the problem is when you discover that even as employment has fallen in North Tyneside, employers have reported increasing difficulties in filling vacancies. It's a difficult thing to understand, but the evidence from employers suggests that most of those vacancies were hard to fill because of difficulties finding candidates with the required skills, qualifications, and experience. A lot of the vacancies which were hard to fill were in areas such as science, engineering, technology, and areas like health and social care. So obviously there's something happening where we have young people who want to work but struggle to find employment, and employers on the other hand say that they have vacancies in a number of areas that they can't fill. I think we need to work closely with employers to ensure that we're equipping our young people with the skills to do the jobs that employers have available, and also to make sure that young people are aware of the range of opportunities for employment out there. And in this respect, the council is working hard to publicise the range of job opportunities in the borough, and we're working with employers to publicise vacancies in areas which might not traditionally be seen as good career opportunities for young people. So, for example, we recently held job fairs in the borough to highlight career opportunities in areas such as social care and retail. And we're also working hard to increase the number of apprenticeships in North Tyneside so young people have attractive roles and that they can earn and receive high quality training while they're gaining new skills. So the final analysis is about making sure our young people have the right education, the right skills and the right opportunities for the opportunities which are available for the jobs which already exist and those that can be created in the future.
Thank you, Councillor. Dean, obviously you deal with a lot of young people in your work. Is it your experience that young people are finding hard to find jobs?
Yeah, I think I'm going to try and skip over a lot of what I was writing down and come to a couple of key points here.
But Councillor Hurley is absolutely right. Actually, Northampton are doing a decent job in terms of young people and employment. There is still an issue, though, around having the right experience. What we find around young people is still having the right stuff. In some cases, a lack of understanding of the world of work and the workplace, what's required in it. There's issues around transport and not being able to get there as well. For some people, there is isolation in that side. And let's not forget, there has been a huge increase in competition for jobs. So it's not just young people that are going for jobs, it's a wider group of the community that are going. So young people are up against some more experienced people. So, we can't overlook some of the obvious factors in there. I do think the last point that Councillor Early touched on around the right skills and training. You mentioned some areas of work where there was sort of a gap between being able to recruit to. We've also done some work with young people that's also said the traditional trades are also falling foul at the moment. So things around construction and around joinery, electricians. And it could be, I'm only saying it could be, that we may not be providing the right education and training that is required in order to be able to get there. And I think we've got some work to do on that. But I think it's a good starting point that there's a clear understanding of where the gaps are in the market and the skills trade is required, and what's being on offer and what's actually being communicated to educational establishments and what have you around what is required. But I want to be a little controversial and say, end with this little bit, is it really depends on what the aspirations and expectations of young people are around work. I get quite a few young people coming to me for jobs, and they don't actually necessarily want to do the work that is required for the job. I remember when I first started, you have to start somewhere. And so it depends on, hear what I'm saying and what I'm not saying, it depends on what your experience, not only what your experience is, but what your expectations are. That, in order to earn money sometimes and make a living, you've got to work for it. And we, more cases than not, we have a lot of young people who are willing to do that. In some cases, there's different aspirations around wanting to work. So I think things around that are really important, and hear what I'm saying there. But one last thing is around health as well, that we come to a wider issue that sometimes we may have individuals that we come, that I experience coming in, that actually can't fulfill a role because their health is not necessarily the best place. So there's a wider role to look at in terms of being able to apply for a job and hold a job down that matters. And things like Wendy was saying earlier on around being fit, doing well, keeping up with that will make a huge difference to be able to actually find a job and hold a job and keep a job down.
Thank you, Dean. Lauren, you are our token young person on the panel. Why is it so hard for young people to find jobs?
Thank you. For me, I think that it's about a few different things. I think that obviously following on from what Dean said, that yes, we've got the experience we'll have, but that might be a stupid thing to ask for if you just left school and they're asking for experience. That was something I really struggled with, like how can you get that? So I think that one of the biggest things is creating your own opportunities. Like my generation, your generation are people that try and create their own opportunities. You don't have to follow the traditions of going to university and going through like the same old things, so school, college, university, which is what I did. But I've now found that there is other things out there. So you've got apprenticeships, you've got self-employment. There's so many different things that you can follow, but you just got to want to be able to do that, and you've got to think about what you want from your job. You might not like working in retail, but it's a starting point, or you might want to do volunteering, something that just shows you're a little bit different and you're willing to give things a go. I've done hundreds of hours of volunteering just to make myself step out and show myself in a different light to other people that are applying for a job. And it's probably worked in my favour 9 times out of 10. There is lots of different volunteering opportunities out there that I think if you're not old enough to work yet, then you should just at least try it and give it a go for a few hours a week, or even just a day of a month. just to show on your CV that you're giving it a go and you're willing to work. Thank you.
So how many people actually do a little bit of volunteering already? Young people. Oh, that's excellent, fantastic. Well, brilliant advice, and you're already following, so well done, all of you.
Can I just come in with one quick little quip? It's worth noting that I do a lot of work with other organisations and companies, and there's a big thing on, just take this away on this a bit, is that recruit for attitude, not necessarily always skill is a big thing. So, you know, an attitude, the skill and the education is absolutely vitally important, but the attitude is really important. That's what a lot of companies and employees are looking for at the moment.
Top tip, thank you. Right, we come to the most exciting moment of the day, and this is a question from Twitter. So we've got a combined question which pulls together a few issues. And I think we've got a student from Long Benton Community College who's going to ask it. Well done.
Education should be mandatory in schools. Why can't young people vote for their own future? What do you think the effect would be if they were mandatory?
So the question revolves around political education. So political education should be mandatory in schools as a statement, being educated about politics and voting. And why can't young people vote? It's our future. So presumably we're looking at sort of people over the age of 16 to 18, rather than just 18 at the moment. Yeah, so from age 16, why can't young people vote, as they did in the Scottish independence referendum in Scotland? Young people aged 16 were allowed to vote in that very important vote. And what do you think the effect would be if we were allowed to vote? If we had all these 16-year-olds unleashed in the workforce? Right, so I'm going to ask people on the panel, and I think the most appropriate person to start with is the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Early. What do you think would be the effect if we allowed 16-year-olds to vote? Should they?
I think it would be a very positive effect. I think it's an answer to the earlier question. The young people I meet are very socially aware, they're very engaged with society. I think there's a feeling that perhaps young people aren't interested in traditional politics. But I think on single issues such as climate change, they've more than demonstrated that they have a great deal of knowledge, that they can take on board issues, that they can debate them in a reasonable and civilized way. I think, we as politicians can probably learn from them in that respect sometimes. So I would say, yes, I think the Scottish referendum, where young people at 16 were able to vote, demonstrated that they do have the capacity to get involved and to think about issues, and I don't see why, given that we are talking about their long-term futures on issues like climate change and Brexit, etc., they should have a voice.
Thank you, Councillor. Lauren, what do you make of this?
Sorry. I think that if when I was at school, I wish that we'd been given more education on politics and getting a better understanding of it. You have a massive understanding of what's going on in the world, but if the teachers and schools and education system aren't giving you a good understanding of what the options are, what different parties mean, things like that, then how are you supposed to understand that once you are ready to vote? So I think starting that at an early age makes more sense. And it's your future, so why shouldn't you be able to, have that opportunity to make a change and to have a say in that? And I think that does start from 16. If in this country you can be sent to prison from 10 years old and you can be charged for something. So if they've got the right of decision from that age, how can 16-year-olds not have the right to be able to vote?
Very good points. Wendy, what's your take on this?
Okay, so my take is, so at the age of 16, you can leave home, you can get married, you can join the army, but you can't vote. And I think that's wrong. So I think our young people, just like the people that we've got in the audience today, I think they're smart, I think they're capable, and I think we should not underestimate the contribution that they could bring. I think it would be fantastic if they could vote at 16. I think it's really important that young people are engaged in the decisions about the future of what is their country. And I think what would be really important to go along with that is that political education. So having a clear understanding of how the system works. And actually, I think what that would do is engage a lot more young people to come out and to vote. And I think it might address some of that imbalance that we've got in the turnout of younger people.
Councillor Bartoli, what do you make of that?
So I think that's the first point, the question about whether or not we should be mandatory teaching politics in school. I think it's great to teach about the institutions, the history of politics, how we vote, where we vote, the reason we vote the way we do. I think there's a big danger in teaching political theory to younger people, because to try and balance all the different political theories without pushing people in a certain direction could be difficult. I'm sure teachers deal with this on a day-to-day basis, but it would have to be handled very sensitively. With regards to the question of whether 16 to 18-year-old votes, I'm not actually worried, if that were the case, about the young people in this room. I'm probably more worried about the politicians. And the reason I say that is because if we were to suddenly unleash several 100,000 new voters onto the political class, I'm worried about the kind of policies that would be created to attract young people, and whether or not those would be gimmicky policies, the kind of ill-conceived policies that perhaps were just trying to get your votes rather than really try to do what's the best for you. So I'm not concerned perhaps about the way that you think. I have the confidence that you can make good decisions, but I am concerned about perhaps the way politicians could view you as a voting bloc. I think that would be my biggest concern.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I absolutely do think there should be political education in schools, and I know our participation team, and you guys can plug this around, have produced a guide with some political education in school, and so any teachers want that, see our participation team, and they will get that. It's the non-partisan guide to teaching political education in schools. It's got resources in there, so our teachers should actually get that. But I should, on the national level, should actually be political education in schools. Both at 16, I spent a lot of time in Scotland during the independence referendum because I was working for Labour Party at the time. The young people who are as engaged as I've ever seen, I've worked for a political party for 10 years now. The young people in the independence referendum that were out of vote were as engaged at any age group I've ever seen. They sought information, they did not wait for information to come to them, they still sought the information. They went out, got there, knew the facts, and chose out a vote in the end. I've been the victim of somebody. I was 17 in 2010 during the general election. I wasn't able to vote. That meant that when the policy for tuition fees was passed a couple of years later, I didn't get a vote on that, but I paid £6,000 extra a year, and I just missed out on voting that by a couple of months. So I didn't get a vote on that. So the old saying of no taxation without representation is a saying that's been resident with me for a long time. If you have a Saturday job, and if you only get 6 on your Saturday, Sunday job, you will pay things. If you were to earn at both that levels, then likely you were just a weekend job. If you were to earn both that level, you would pay tax. Need people to have representation. And the final part of the question, what's the final part of the question?
What do you think the effect would be if we did allow 16-year-olds to vote?
I think the effect would be, it's just allowing people who are engaged in politics to vote. We're not going to have any difference at all. We've seen politicians and parties for years go after the elderly vote because they think that they will always vote. I don't think it would make much difference. Young people are engaged in certain policies at the moment that all political parties have to vote how they feel was right to do. So I don't think it make much difference.
Thank you. Rob, do you have a thought?
Yeah, just briefly, I think you, everyone out there, some of you, maybe, you're our future. And I think the democracy, yeah, sorry. I think we need to celebrate democracy. As part of that, you should be getting involved as early as you can. I think 16 is not a bad age, you understand that Mary, I mean, you can do a lot of things when you're 16. I'll leave it there. But in terms of political education within schools, I think it should be a choice for you at a certain point. So if you want to take that as a career or something you want to expose yourself to, I think there might be a bit of a tipping point there where I think actually you should maybe be able to take it as a subject that you want to do at some point, rather than be forced upon you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Dean, let's have your perspective.
No, I don't think you should be able to vote at 16. No, I do. I just want to see some faces, that was all. No, of course, I do think you should be able to vote at 16. I think there's something about ownership. I think there's something about intelligence. I think the issue, I'm sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place on the school bit. I think it should be taught. I'm not convinced it should be mandatory. But I do think there should be early education on it, even if it was to help us understand that the recent debacle that's gone on is not what politics is necessarily about. So that would be really useful in the first place. But I think in order to be able to give you the right understanding of what politics is meant to be around for would be really, really useful. I think a caveat I would put on it and be not nervous about would be around how it's delivered and who it's delivered about. Carl said earlier on, so it wasn't partisan. I think, you know, we've got to be really careful that that is delivered in the right way. So it's a delicate subject and it's really important. But I do think, you know, we all sit in this room, the voice has been heard out in the nation that 16-year-olds are crying out for the vote. And I think it's really, really a massive yes from across the whole panel. I think what the result will be on that will be some better understanding and some willingness to want to, from young people, to want to actually attain and grasp the future and to feel that actually they've got a say in what's going on. And I think that's quite important. So yeah, big thumbs up from me.
I think it's very obvious what the answer would be, but who thinks that we should have votes from 16? And who dares to say we shouldn't? Well, I think it seems universal, so we need to get it across to politicians that you are the future and you should have a vote from 16. Excellent. Well, we have an amazing array of questions today, all very, very topical, touching on all the issues of the day: plastics, climate change, Brexit, jobs, all the things that affect you as young people, as future voters, future citizens in North Tyneside. Thank you very much to our panel. I won't name them all again, but you know who they are, you can read their names. They've all done sterling jobs coming from different backgrounds. And thank you for participating on Twitter as well. There's been some great contributions. I've been enjoying all the video clips. Thank you very much for coming today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say a final few words. But first of all, can I thank you for that brilliant question that came out at the end through Twitter. Sadly, obviously, North Tyneside on its own, we can't change the law about how young people can vote. What we can do, and what we do, is make sure that in North Tyneside we actually find ways to listen to our young people and to give you a say. Beyond the age of 16, we go much younger than that. We have, brilliant mechanisms to do that, brilliant participation from the young people and the schools, and we're really proud of what we do. But what we do every year is try to find new ways to do even more. But if you think about what you've actually achieved today as young people, what you've done is you've actually held everybody on this panel to account for the things that you feel really strongly about, and you shouldn't underestimate that. You've got key decision makers on this panel in the council. You've got Rob, who runs obviously a huge public sector organisation that is so valuable to this borough. You've got business and you've got community group representation. So what you've done today is actually fantastic. That's without having a vote, so you should be really proud of yourselves. I've really enjoyed the questions and the answers. I knew you'd ask really good questions, and you did. And I've learned loads. I've learned loads about what's important to you, which is the most important thing. But I've also learned loads from the panel. I thought there was some really good, good food for thought ideas there, and some brilliant things about what you can do and what we can do as individuals. So lastly, I'd like to thank everybody who asked the questions, because you all spoke the questions really, really well. Can I thank the audience for coming along, the panel members. It's not easy to do this, so I really appreciate the time that you've given up and the answers that you've given. And finally, can I ask Alana to come and help me say a big thank you to Adrian for once again chairing the panel. Come and take a bow.
I've got a huge collection of items around my home for the last 5-6 years. People know that I'm one of Tyleside's most loyal servants.
You are indeed. Thank you very much, Adrian. Really appreciate it. Thanks again. Have a brilliant rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.